prep school. It's very expensive to go to, but they spend some money recruiting specific or certain athletes to come in there and play sports. They've got 3 or 4 basketball dudes who came in from out of town who are part of the program and who are really good, and they got a coach who has a lot of experience both at the high school and college level. His name's Dave Wojcik. His brother Doug is an assistant at Michigan State. So going to be a big challenge for us. We watched them on video last night together, the team and us, and we're going over there, 3-hour bus ride. We're going to be without our leading scorer, R.J. Greer, who got hurt in the McNick game last Friday, and is a kind of a day-to-day thing for him right now, but he hurt his left elbow, and he's getting treatment for it, and hopefully it heals relatively quickly. But we're going to be without him. And we've only done that once this year. That was down in South Carolina, and we lost to a really good John Carroll team out of Maryland by 1 point. So somebody's going to have to pick up the slack from a scoring perspective. We're going to miss him a lot, but it'll be a good test for our kids to see where they are right now at this point in the season and what they can do without him.
Yeah, that'll be interesting. He is the leading scorer, obviously, for the Knights and is playing well. But your expectations certainly are that you'll have him back for the tournament that's coming.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. It's probably a couple-week injury. We'll never know until we get there, I guess, for sure. But we don't play again until next Friday when we go to Fenwick.
Correct.
We now have a 2-game lead on our closest pursuer in the league, which is CJ. So we got a little bit of cushion there to work with in terms of our aspirations of winning the league. But like I told him last night, Coach wasn't there. I had to wrap up practice on my own last night. But like I told him last night, and I think they're fully aware of this, you're playing for a seeding right now. Every game matters in terms of your seeding for the tournament, since we're not using the coach's voting system anymore. And so this is a big opportunity to pick up a lot of what we call RPI credit. And hopefully we can go over there and get it done and have an enjoyable 3-hour bus ride coming home.
Yeah, that game will take place at 3:30 p.m. You and I will not be calling that game just because of the distance. But you mentioned the boys will take on Fenwick next Friday on February the 2nd. The following night they will travel to Urbana. The next Tuesday we'll be at Fairmont, and hopefully that one will be on alternights.tv as well.
Yeah.
Then you'll have Carroll at home, Northmont at home, Baden at home, and then you'll wrap up the regular season at CJ. So hard to believe, only, 7 games left after today. Going to be an exciting tournament, but hard to believe that we're rolling around already to the end of the season.
We're getting down there to the very end, and a tough stretch of games to wrap up the season. We have one of the toughest strength of schedules in the state. That we've seen, both Max Preps and Martin RPI, and it doesn't get any easier down the stretch here. So, but that's why we do it, right? It challenges the kids, good competition, and it's just a better way of going about it versus scheduling a bunch of games you can win.
Oh, absolutely. So we'll be looking forward to getting an update from you, Mike, following the game today against a very tough Lindsley High School out of West Virginia. So that'll be very interesting to see how the boys perform in that one.
Yep.
Wanted to give an update on the girls as well. They are rolling as well, having a great season. They're ranked number 3 in the state right now at 15-2, and they're 7-0 in the GCL. They had a very interesting game last weekend. They traveled up to Versailles, and this year the Lady Knights are playing in Division III, Mike, and this was an interesting game because Versailles is also in Division III, and they're kind of a perennial tough program that plays in Division III. So I was really interested to see how the girls would perform on the road up there at Versailles, but they came away with a 10-point win. I think that's about right. They led for the whole ball game. Versailles did keep it close, but the Knights were able to pull away a little bit there in the end. But it was an impressive win. The Knights have been playing without Riley Smith, who is a senior forward for the Lady Knights. She'll be playing at Central Michigan. for the next 4 years in college. Very good player, great outside shooter, but she also adds a lot of other things to the team, and that is rebounding and defense. So again, they're going to be playing without her for a couple of ball games, kind of similar to RJ on the boys team. She, I believe, it's not the same injury, but I think they're going to be out at maybe the same kind of time frame. So we'll look forward to getting Riley Smith back. But without Riley, the girls went up to Versailles and got the 10-point win. And then earlier this week, they traveled to CJ, who is kind of, I would say this season is their maybe their biggest competition in the Greater Catholic League. But they took care of them as well on the road, 46-36, also a 10-point win. CJ closed the gap a few times, but the Knights were able to kind of battle through that and come away with a 10-point win. So, you know, what a luxury for a high school to have both their basketball teams. I don't know. Okay, there we go.
I was just trying to mute mine.
Okay. Just kind of a luxury, I was saying, Mike, for both of their teams to, you know, be performing this well and have a really legitimate shot of making a deep run in the tournament.
Yeah, it's exciting times when you have two programs like that at the same school having such major success at the state level. And that's exactly what the Lady Knights and the boys are doing. And you got a front row seat to all of it, Tim, so hopefully you're enjoying it as well.
Yes, I am. Having a blast, and it will definitely be exciting. And I know maybe you can answer this question, but the tournament draw will be coming up shortly as well. I think the girls might be a week prior to when the men's pick their brackets.
That is correct. Theirs will be probably a week from Sunday, I'm thinking, and ours is a couple weeks away. So we're getting there, man. It's so close.
Mike, let's dive into the NFL head coaching vacancies. We started with 9, and now we're only down to 2 openings, and that's the Seahawks and the Commanders, because the Falcons just made their hire, and so did the Panthers. But I wanted to touch on something real quick. The Falcons interviewed Bill Belichick twice, and I'm kind of shocked. Not necessarily that they didn't hire him, but I'm shocked that only the Falcons interviewed him.
A little bit surprising. I thought for sure the Commanders would jump in on the Belichick, interest there, but I'm not surprised. I mean, they hired Raheem Morris, the Falcons did, who has previous head coaching experience, not real successful previous head coaching experience, but a lot of history down there in Atlanta, and is a young, vibrant coach that probably relates really well to players, and maybe that's part of it. Belichick is older, and maybe he doesn't do that so well anymore. And perhaps it's probably some of it's probably a situation where he might have wanted a little bit more control of the situation down there than they were probably willing to give him. I'm sure it wasn't a money thing. I mean, that's not going to be something that's going to hold him back. Probably do it for free if they let him, but. We may end up having a season next year without Bill Belichick in it from a head coaching perspective, which the longer we go in this process and the closer we get to the end, it sure looks like that's going to be the case.
Yeah, and I agree with you. I'm not necessarily shocked that he didn't get a position, but I am shocked that the Falcons were the only ones to at least bring him in for a discussion.
Yeah, that's surprising.
Yeah, Raheem Morris was hired by the Falcons. He coached Tampa Bay from 2009 through 2011. Didn't really have a lot of success there. Was only 17-31, but he's a good coach, and they're going to give him another chance. We already mentioned episodes ago that Jared Mayo was hired by the Patriots. Antonio Pierce decided to go with the Raiders decided to go with Antonio Pierce, who was the interim coach there. And I know a lot of the players on the Raiders really wanted the Raiders to hire him as their full-time coach, so they went ahead and did that. The Chargers hired Jim Harbaugh, former Michigan head coach, and the Titans hired former Bengals offensive coordinator Brian Callahan. So it's starting to fill in.
Yeah.
just a couple of more. And I think the two teams that haven't are waiting for some of
by the time the season rolls around next week, if you ask me if I can name half of the head coaches in the NFL, I doubt I'll be able to do that.
Yeah, it's you're right. I mean, it becomes so much football at that point that nobody really cares who's coaching.
No, but the change is insane.
And I don't know if I mentioned this one, Mike, but the Panthers hired, and correct me if I'm wrong, I'm not sure how to pronounce his name, but Dave Canales?
That sounds about right. Yeah, the offensive coordinator from Tampa Bay, young guy.
Yeah, and that seems to be a trend too. It seems like everybody's going with a little bit of youth as far as filling in their vacancies.
Yeah, a lot of young guys. I mean, most of these guys we just mentioned, there's a couple in there that are under 40. So, yeah, it's maybe a little bit of a trend, but hey, man, it doesn't matter. I mean, in 2 or 3 years, they're all going to be gone, and they'll be hiring somebody new anyways. I'm just glad that, for our benefit, the Bengals and the Browns seem to be happy with who they have, and they there's something to be said for having that consistency. Having a guy that's there, year in, year out, and having success. And of course, the Bengals are famous for doing that. The Steelers are the most famous for doing that. I'm glad the Browns have a guy that they've latched on to, possible coach of the year, Kevin Stefanski, and it's great to have consistency in that position, and I think it helps in the long run for sure.
Absolutely, no doubt. Totally agree with you on that one. Mike, we do have a special guest that we're going to bring on today. It's Larry Hansgen. He's the voice of the Dayton Flyers. We'll have him on in just a few minutes, so just wanted to cover a couple of things real quick before we bring Larry on, but we talked a little bit about this last week. Alabama, lots of players jumping ship. Now some coaches are also leaving or were not retained by Alabama's new staff. Tommy Rees being one. He was the former offensive coordinator at Alabama, had the same position at Notre Dame. And this one kind of hits home with you, I think. He is headed to the Browns. He's going to be the tight ends coach, but will also have responsibility with the offensive game plan.
Yeah, that's an interesting appointment, but these guys seem to kind of latch on. If they're good, they seem to latch on and always end up with something to do, whether it's a coordinator's job or a position group. Again, Tommy Rees, a young guy with a lot of experience. I think guys that have worked under Nick Saban bring a lot to the table when they leave down there and join other organizations, and so I'm sure he'll be able to put a lot of effort into coaching those tight ends up in Cleveland, and he will work out well, I'm sure, up there.
Yeah, I also saw an interesting tweet. I saw an interesting tweet, Mike, come out this week, and it was about Saban, and they were talking about how they think that Saban just decided to retire because he does not want to mess anymore with, the whole recruiting, the NIL, and the portal. And we talked about that briefly last week, I thought.
Yeah.
But I kind of agree with that. And they also thought that Alabama's success was prior to the portal, and they don't think that Alabama will ever be back at that level again.
Well, they're not going to be back at that level again. Nobody will be.
I agree.
That is that's not going to happen. That's kind of like the John Wooden era for basketball, UCLA from back in the day. But although I hear those kinds of things, but I think to myself, a guy like Nick Saban doesn't do anything, right? He delegates all that stuff. He's probably holding meetings and checking in on guys and stuff like that. But he's not out there doing all the legwork, making all the phone calls, researching guys on the internet, and all that kind of stuff that they have to do. But I guess ultimately it does become tiring, just in terms of how much turnover there is with your roster year over year. Now that we have that transfer portal, and the NIL is kind of really a new thing, and people are still trying to feel their way through it. But perhaps Alabama will not be willing to spend the money that other programs are spending, or get their collectives to pull together the strings that they need to fund NIL like that. So that probably all started to weigh on him a little bit. He's obviously an older guy, and maybe just got tired of the grind, perhaps. But he'll end up on College game day next year, and he'll be involved in the game and be part of it and all that stuff, and he'll be fine. But who knows, until he comes out and is honest about why he left, we won't really know for sure. That's a lot of speculation, but it definitely makes sense to me.
Yeah, I totally agree, and I there's going to be a point, I would imagine, where he will come out with a book.
Yeah.
But
Roll
3
Tide.
4 down, 3 or 4 years down the road. But that will be definitely some interesting reading and you're right, to get his feedback and maybe to get a little bit of truth. Right now he probably wants to hold a few things close to the vest, but I would imagine 3, 4, 5 years down the road, he might be willing to divulge maybe the real reason why he decided. And it could be maybe he's just tired and wanted to retire. But I have a feeling that there might be more to it.
Yeah, I think there's more to it. I think it all adds up. I mean, people have asked me, why did I retire? Why did I stop being a head coach in high school?
Yeah.
And it's not just one thing. It's multiple reasons, and I'm sure it all started to add up, and that's why he made the decision when he did. And saw him surfing in the waves the other day and getting the crap knocked out of him. It was on Twitter, a video of him, pretty funny stuff.
That is hilarious.
But yeah, he's obviously deserved what he's got coming, and I ultimately ended up really respecting him and what he accomplished down there as much as I hated the fact that they kept winning every year. Ultimately ended up really respecting what he did down there, how he did it. I don't. It doesn't matter whether they, covered stuff up or whatever. They had very few issues down there with players. And
agreed.
They ran what seemingly as a very clean program. Used their success, the tradition at Alabama, everything that comes with being at Alabama as the strength in terms of how they recruited guys, and then ultimately became a Nick Saban thing. And so that's why I think you're seeing a lot of people, kids leave Alabama because he's left. They went there for him and not because they like Tuscaloosa. So you've seen a bunch of guys jumping ship down there, and they're going to have a tough time getting a reset. It's going to take Kalen DeBoer 2 or 3 years to, I think, be competitive in terms of the top, being at the top of the SEC. And but that's just the nature of the beast. There's no way around it. Probably the same thing's going to happen to Michigan. And it's just the way it is nowadays. Kids can leave at any time, and they take advantage of it, I guess.
Yeah, you knew the day was going to come where he eventually would leave Alabama. Going to be very interesting to see how Kalen DeBoer does there at Alabama. He's a very good coach, but yeah, you're right. It's a different situation. There is no doubt players were going there because of Nick Saban, and
absolutely,
it's evident with all the portal departures. But I thought it was interesting, Mike, that at least as far as the recruiting rankings, the official rankings came out because some of the players or all of the players are reevaluated, and some move up in stars, some come down. But on 3 still had, they had Georgia, Alabama, Oregon, Ohio State, Miami, Texas, LSU, Auburn, Oklahoma, and Notre Dame in their top 10. Rivals had Ohio State at number 1, 247. Had them at number 3, and they were, of course, 4 in the on 3. And but if you look at it, Alabama, they're still right there as far as recruiting. So I think their class pretty much stayed intact, at least the incoming class. So,
yeah, I don't know if I've heard a lot about guys decommitting that are coming in. The quarterback that Ohio State got, but other than that, and he's a freshman, so not a lot going on there as far as the kids leaving the school from that class.
Yeah, so it'll be interesting. Notre Dame, we've talked the last couple of weeks about what they have done in the portal.
He'll come live.
Okay. So we're trying to get Larry on the phone here, but Notre Dame lost a couple of players. Gabriel Rubio.
Hi, this is Larry. I can't.
The defensive lineman is no longer on the team or enrolled at Notre Dame's Andrew Kristofic, an offensive lineman, decided to retire from football. Next season would have been his 6th season at Notre Dame, but I think he pretty much became, a victim of the 85. And by that I mean they require college football teams' rosters to have 85 players or less, and I think maybe he was just a victim of needing space, pulling younger players in, more, possibly more talented players. But he was a good player at Notre Dame. I don't think he was going to start had he decided to stay on for that extra year. But so Notre Dame will be without a couple of players. I believe, if I heard correctly, they are on. They're a little bit over right now, but there's so much attrition that goes on after spring practice and things like that.
Yeah, it's a lot of change still yet to come. There's another portal window in the spring, and won't be as much change, but there's still some change coming and some news that will be had out of that process.
And Mike, Ohio State lost some in the beginning, but I haven't heard very much more about Ohio State losing any players.
No, they've not lately. No, they got through the first couple of weeks where those guys decided to jump ship, the high profile guys, and since then they've done nothing but add to their roster, and so the table is set for Ohio State and next season. I think, Tim, and pressure's on. I think everybody kind of recognizes at this point, especially with the new AD coming on board, that Ryan Day is kind of a do or die situation for him next season. And do or die meaning beat Michigan and at least play for the national championship. I think those are the expectations in terms of him passing the test and being able to come back after that. So very, very interesting season lining up next year over in Columbus.
Absolutely. And Larry, do we have you on this morning?
Larry, are you there? I don't know.
He's not hooked up here.
Let's try this.
Well, while we wait for Larry, I just wanted to give you a little background on, I think he's on the phone, but we're having a problem getting him on the podcast. But Larry has spent 42 years at WHIO. This is his 41st season calling the basketball games for the University of Dayton. He has done 35 years.
Hello.
Hey, Larry.
Calling football, and he's the host of Miami Valley's Morning News. Larry, thanks for joining us this morning.
Oh, my pleasure, my pleasure.
Where are you at, Larry? Tell everybody where you're at.
I'm in Richmond, Virginia.
Yes, sir. The Spiders today, right?
You got it.
That's going to be a fantastic game. I can't wait to watch. Well, I got to watch it. I got to record it and watch it. We're going over to Wheeling, West Virginia to play a game, team I coach. But what do you think about that game and the matchup and what's all at stake, really?
Well, first place in the league. Both teams are 6-0. Dayton's got the longest winning streak in the country right now at 13 in a row. Richmond's won 9 in a row. So and they're 10-0 at home. So something's got to give tonight. Someone's going to be disappointed, and I just hope it's the Spiders.
What's the environment at Richmond like normally, given your history there? I know today might be maybe another level, but what's the environment down there like?
Normally, it's pretty good. I would never describe it as hostile. Maybe until today. I can remember being here in 2020 with Obi, and like their baseball team showed up super early, and they were right behind one basket, and they were like riding him. Trying to get in his head, just in not just pregame, but pre-game, if you will.
Right.
And what was funny is that, and he, call it, rabbit ears or whatever, but he responded. I mean, he didn't ignore him. And then he went out and played great. Dayton won. And afterwards, he's signing autographs and posing for pictures with the people that were just trying to, get on him. And ironically, we had something similar like that happen earlier this year when Dayton was at Duquesne. They were trying to get into Ron Holmes' head, and sure enough, after the game, he's walking up, shaking hands, signing autographs.
That's great.
That's cool.
Well, Larry, we had you on kind of before the season started. It was, I believe, the day that you came on, they had a scrimmage game against Ohio State. But, when we talked to you then, you certainly had positive feelings about this team. Have they kind of exceeded your expectations, what you thought maybe this season would be so far?
I don't know. I mean, I can't say I'm surprised.
Yeah.
So, but at the same time, I mean, they've played very well. I mean, that they have, and I guess maybe the thing that has surprised me has been their maturity.
Yeah.
They've got a maturity about them that I was not expecting. That I would say, they've and you stop and think about it. Okay, these guys have played a lot of college basketball. The whole thing with having the COVID years and some kids transferring. These guys have been around a bit. So that's it's surprising. That part snuck up on me. I would say. And then, they've just been super focused up until now. Let's knock on wood. They've been where their feet are. They've not been, looking ahead or
that's good,
or anything like that.
I thought I was able to go down to the game when they took on Cincinnati in Cincinnati. It was a quote unquote neutral floor game. But I kind of wanted to get your feelings on that game because I thought that game really kind of springboarded them forward. And I think really showed everyone else, at least around the country, that this is a legit team. But they won 82-68 that night, Larry. And I thought, at least from my viewpoint, they really were in control of that game. Cincinnati led early, but Dayton took the lead and just withstood every run and every pressure that Cincinnati had throughout that game.
I would think that might have been their best performance to date, although they really put it to Rhode Island, but Rhode Island wasn't as good as you see. But to me, when they arrived, so to speak, was down in Charleston when they came from behind, and they were down 15 points with about 9 minutes to go, and they came from behind to beat LSU. I think that's when it started. And then played a very complete start to finish game against St. John's, although they were down 2 at the half, but really they were never, they didn't dig a hole. Houston was just, I hope they get a chance to play Houston again. That would be cool because I think they got kind of overwhelmed in the first half. I think Houston's speed, which you can watch tape, and you can have a good feel for a team watching tape. Then all of a sudden you see them live and like, oh, whoa. Right. I mean, these guys are quick. And then that's the last time they've lost.
Right.
Think about that. It was,
that was a long time ago.
Sunday before Thanksgiving is the last time they lost a game.
Wow. Put in that perspective, that's a long time. And Houston and Cincinnati have gone on to have a pretty good season. I mean, obviously Cincinnati being tested in terms of and both Houston and in terms of their first year in the Big 12. But Cincinnati's kind of put it together a little bit since then, and they went on a little bit of a roll. And Houston's Houston. I agree with you. Those two guards they have are just so quick, and doing what I do in terms of scouting and watching video, you can look at video and draw some conclusions, but it's not the same thing as seeing them in person. And and those guys were athletic. I mean, that I love Kelvin Sampson and what he does down there and how those guys play, and that had to be interesting. But I do agree it would be really nice to see them play again somehow or another.
Yeah, well, it would if they play again, it would be probably in an Elite Eight or a Final Four.
Yeah, right. How much does Dayton really depend on their 3-point shooting in your opinion? I mean, can they win having an average to below average shooting night?
Well, I mean, they have. I mean, they did Tuesday at LaSalle, and they did against St. Louis. But I think it's important. Yeah, I mean, it's really shooting the basketball is you can't count on it.
Yeah.
What's the old saying? Offense doesn't travel, but defense does.
Right.
So, they've become a much better defensive team over the last, really since league play began. They've become a much better defensive team. So, that's something you have to rely on. If you're going to rely on making 3-point shots, well, you're going to have a very disappointing game, if not a disappointing season.
Yeah. And Larry, you kind of mentioned it when you hopped on today, but this team this season is drawing comparisons to the 2019-2020 team. Obi Toppin, Deron Holmes, they're both teams obviously had great seasons, but do you think there are similarities between these two teams, or do you think they're completely different?
No, I think there's some similarities, and I think having an All-American big man is obviously one that just jumps off the page at you. But I just think the way that they they play together, that this is a team that they play for and through each other, and that was the case before. I mean, you can take individuals and compare them, and does this Dayton team have a Jalen Crutcher? Well, no. But is Kobe Brea maybe even a better guy coming off the bench, knock down shots than Ibby Watson was? Well, you could maybe yeah.
Yeah.
So is Isaac Jack a better backup, a 5-man than Jordy Shimanga? Yeah, maybe so. Was there a defender like Javon Bennett? Maybe not. So yeah, I mean, it's an unfair comparison to both groups, but inevitably people are going to make it.
Right, and that 2020 team was 29-2, 18-0 in the conference, A10 regular season champions, 17-0 at home, 9-0 away, 3-2 on a neutral court, and had a 20-game winning streak. And I had the pleasure of being at that final game at home, Larry, when they took on GW. It was kind of a surreal experience. I don't know how you would kind of describe it. I know you've probably run the gamut with experiences with UD basketball, but I was lucky enough to have seats right behind the GW bench, so I was right on the court, and it was just absolutely a surreal experience. And it is, I'd love to get your kind of feelings about how everything ended and what a disappointment that was, because that was a team that was going to be a number 1 seed, and us as UD fans, we've really felt like they had a very good chance of winning it all.
Yeah, I mean that day, I guess the biggest takeaway would be that I'm glad that I soaked it in as much as I did.
Yeah,
because nobody knew that was going to be it. That everyone just assumed there's going to be a lot more to come. We got games to play in Brooklyn next week, and then there's the tournament, and but that was it. But so I guess the biggest takeaway I have is that I'm glad I enjoyed the moment, because I didn't realize it was going to be the last.
Yeah, what a huge disappointment that the whole, the way that ended. And I mean, we'll never know, I guess.
Yeah, I mean, excuse me, Dayton's gotten quite a bit of respect, obviously, with that season and since then. But to go through the whole process. I know they got the national coach of the year, national player of the year, but to go through that whole process and be on TV on Sunday night when they're announcing the selections and all that, and see Dayton's name up there as a number 1 seed, and kind of, go through the process of seeing what might have happened. Shoulda, woulda, coulda, I guess, but that would have really have brought a lot of attention to the program and to the city.
Yeah, and fortunately or unfortunately, that keeps being brought up. So, this team is making people remember that.
Yes,
and so as a consequence, that season has gotten a second life due to this season.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So let me ask you a question, Larry, because it's been very popular to talk about it the last couple of months for sure, if not longer, and that is UD's presence in the A10 and kind of what the A10 is or isn't doing for them, and is there any future for UD in the Big East? What do you know, or what can you share in terms of conversations or things that you've had with other people or heard yourself about that?
It'll never happen.
Yeah.
I mean, in order to join a league, the people in that league have to want you.
Right.
And there's I think it probably only takes one veto, and there's going to be I can know 3 off the top of my head for sure. So yeah, I mean, it's just not going to happen.
And what is the reason for that, Larry? They just don't want Dayton.
Jesuits.
Okay. Yeah.
DePaul and Xavier.
Jesuits don't like Marianists. I mean, it really is at that level.
It's not
an athletic director level. It's at the school president and Catholic order level.
Crazy.
Well, hopefully there's some pressure being put on some of these lower level A10 teams to pick up the slack, right? I mean, it's some of these venues that they play in are just like atrocious.
Embarrassing.
Yeah, it is embarrassing for the league. If they put those games on TV, it doesn't look good, right?
Gola Arena.
No. Yeah, they're going to be doing a big renovation on that. They're planning to, but I just don't see where they're going to come up with the money.
Right.
And so as a consequence, at least on paper, they're trying, but I don't know. The thing is, you can go around the league and okay, Dayton obviously is serious about basketball. St. Louis is serious about basketball. St. Bonaventure is serious about basketball. VCU is. Richmond is. Davidson is.
Right.
You know what? Duquesne is. Rhode Island is. Fordham kind of is, but I don't know that they're going to, get out of their comfort zone.
Right.
St. Joe's is, but I think they're still trying to recover from, what was really a bad decision to fire Phil Martelli.
Yeah, agreed.
I don't know what Sal is. I don't know what GW is, although they're better now. With they've made a coaching. The guy Chris Caputo's second year. I mean, he's done some good things there. But from an institution standpoint, I just don't know how serious they are. I really don't have a feel for George Mason. I think they're still kind of trying to live off the magic in the bottle of their, Final Four year.
Right.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, I've always felt that the best thing the A10 could do would be to contract instead of expand.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's a good point. Larry, I want to go back just a little bit regarding the 2020 team. You wrote a book called Bigger Than Basketball. Really fun read to relive that season. But I wanted to ask you, how did that come about? Is that something that you just decided to do on your own, or did somebody kind of light a fire for you and ask you to do that?
It was something I decided to do. Now, I had done another book about the Elite 8 team in 2014, And so when this team got rolling, there were some people that just said, "Oh, you got to write another book. Got to write another book." And then I think maybe the biggest impetus was the pandemic, was the cancellation of the tournament, because it did, it left everyone feeling empty.
Yeah.
So I guess maybe the book was trying to give some closure to something that just abruptly ended, and everyone's kind of going, well, what happened?
Yeah,
well,
what now?
What was that?
Yeah, well, that's cool. It's a good book. If people want to kind of relive that season, I would recommend getting it. It's called Bigger Than Basketball, written by Larry Hansgen. Larry, just a couple more things maybe before we let you go. I know you're busy, but I wanted to just ask you, about something. I decided to kind of get into broadcasting a little bit. I was taking some courses through a organization called Sports Management Worldwide, and part of the requirements in one of the courses I took was to interview somebody who's in this business already, and you were kind enough to allow me to interview. But I remember one of the questions I asked you was what you hadn't done yet that you wanted to do. And do you remember what your answer was to me?
I don't remember, no.
You said that you wanted to call a Final Four. And the reason, the reason why I brought that up is because you almost had it. And, this year we don't know where this team is headed, but you have possibly another chance.
Well, I certainly would hope so.
So much depends on the draw, right? Seedings and the drawing and where you got to go to play and all that kind of stuff. But you just mentioned it. If George Mason can do it, right? If Butler can do it, there's no reason why Dayton can't, right? I mean, it's definitely a possibility if they stay healthy, knock on wood, and they get a good seeding and a good draw, and who knows, right?
You know what? I'm just worried about Richmond tonight.
Absolutely.
Yeah. I can't wait. I can't wait for that game. This is going to be really exciting. And like Larry said earlier, something's got to give tonight. And, this is a big test for UD on the road. I guess a little bit of pressure with the winning streak and everything, but they get past this one tonight, and it's serious, right? It's really serious. And what are your thoughts about that matchup tonight in terms of how UD and Richmond match up, and what that's going to look like out on the court?
Well, it's always a tough prep because they play a unique offense and defense like none other in the league. So, but it's not the first time they played them, so they can kind of, bring out here's what we did the year before. And Dayton's actually had a lot of success against Richmond, both here, there. In fact, the only loss to Richmond in the last 10 years, I believe, came in the semis of the A-10 tournament 2 years ago.
Wow.
When Malachi Smith got hurt right before halftime.
Right.
And so, really the monkey's on their back right now.
Well, he does a great job. I mean, talking about coaching consistency, how long has he been there now?
Oh, geez. I think I'm pretty sure he would be the dean of coaches in the league.
Yeah, absolutely. But he does a great job, and they like him, and they do take their basketball serious down there.
Well, Larry, if the season kind of ended, or I cut you off, did you have something that you wanted to add to that?
No.
Oh, okay. I was just going to say, if the season kind of wrapped up today, what are your thoughts on March Madness? Where do you think UD is going to land as far as a seed? If they kind of finish the season out strong, where do you think they're going to fall?
Well, if this is going to be scripted like a great Hollywood story, they would be a 4 seed, and they would be sent out to Spokane, where they can avenge their loss to Tulsa back in 2003.
Yeah, I remember that, unfortunately.
Yeah, who's with you today, Larry? Is Keith with you, or
Josh Fosterman?
Josh. And Josh is living out in Arizona, I think, right? We went out to San Diego. Alder did 2 years ago and played basketball out there, and actually played against Josh's son's team.
Oh, really?
In a little tournament out there. He's a nice player, but tell Josh we said hello, and you guys, all of you guys do a great job. Try to catch as much as I can on the radio, and really appreciate what you do and how you guys bring the action to everybody back here in Dayton.
Well, thank you. It's our pleasure.
Yeah.
All right, Larry, we really appreciate you joining us this morning. Go get a win tonight, and hopefully we'll talk to you soon.
Okay. All right. Thanks, guys.
Thanks,
All
Larry.
right, have a great day.
All right. Bye.
And folks, that was Larry Hansgen. He is the voice of the Dayton Flyers. He is out in Virginia to cover the UD game tonight with the Richmond Spiders. Again, both teams come into that game, Mike, at 6-0. So that's a huge game, and whoever wins that one will certainly put themselves in the driver's seat as far as capturing the A-10 crown.
It's a big, big game. I'm sure Richmond's feeling a little pressure too. It's a big game for them being at home. I did not realize until he just said it that it's been only once over the last 10 years that Dayton's actually lost to Richmond. That's a crazy stat. But I think tonight's going to be a major challenge. It's going to be interesting to see what happens. Very excited for the Flyers and the program. Coach Grant's done a great job down there. Obviously, Brady Ewell, part of the program now as an Alder grad. They've got, 3 or 4 GCL guys sitting on the bench. Brady, C.J. Napier from Fenwick, Anthony Grant's son. Mackay is there, and I can't think of his name off the top of my head, but they got another CJ freshman that's on the bench down there, and so the GCL, the
well represented,
is well represented on the bench, and then obviously Brady getting a scholarship a couple weeks ago. That announcement came after a practice by Coach Grant, and was a big thrill for him. So Brady Ewell now a scholarship player at UD, and he deserves every bit of that.
Phenomenal video that came out when they announced that
great.
In the locker room. All the players just
if you know
crazy.
Brady at all, and which obviously I do, got a chance to coach him for a couple years, but he is a hard worker, very modest, focused, serious young man, and for him to get that is tremendous. One of those just really good stories that you like to hear about every now and then.
It absolutely is, and I'm sure his mom and dad really appreciate that scholarship.
Absolutely. Kelly and Bill are happy, and it's just a major way to recognize what he's done for the program. And he's got another year of eligibility. He does get some meaningful minutes. They throw him in there.
Yeah, he gets in.
And so it's going to be interesting again to follow these guys and see what happens as we head down the stretch here. And the A-10 is not maybe as strong as it from top to bottom that it's been in the past, but still it doesn't matter. You win the A-10. I like where Larry's going with that, getting a 4 seed, maybe the fourth seed, maybe top 16 team, and having to go out to Spokane to play somebody out there. But how exciting is it going to be down the stretch with the A-10 tournament, and then sitting there on Sunday waiting for Dayton's name to pop up on the screen during Selection Sunday?
Absolutely love it. It's one of the best times of the year. The March Madness is just love it. Just love when it rolls around, and it just becomes even better, Mike, when UD is in it, and especially how good they are. But talking about that 2020 season, Larry is so right. It's like after it was all, you're like, wait a minute. We just had one of the best seasons ever here at the University of Dayton, and it's over. We got nowhere else to go.
It's not the same thing, but we kind of experienced that with Alter High School.
Absolutely
boys. Won the district championship down in Cincinnati, beating the undefeated Wyoming team, and we're prepping for the regional semifinal at UD Arena, and we had a really, really strong chance of winning that regional semifinal game based on who we knew we were going to play and haven't seen them. But didn't get the chance, and it was all kind of taken away from everybody, and we didn't get the chance to do that. Our season kind of ended relatively abruptly also. Not the same thing, I understand that, but definitely something that our kids, had to deal with, and we still talk about, because who knows what would have happened that season for us.
Without a doubt.
We could have gone to state, definitely could have gone to state, and who knows what happens once you get there. So, but it didn't happen, and sooner or later you got to put it behind you and move forward.
Well, and just I want to jump back real quick. You had the pleasure of coaching Brady Ewell at Alter, and I just want to, he's a great kid, and couldn't be more happy for him getting a full ride there at UD.
No, it's great. Really happy for him, the program, and his family. And we've got another Ewell at Alder, Charlie Ewell, 6'8" junior, who's doing well, and the Ewell family's great. Bill Sr. was fantastic. It's a legacy there at UD, and Brady's the third of a generation to have played there.
Grandpa, Bill Jr., Brady, and then, who knows? Maybe Charlie will play there as well.
Yeah, he might.
Charlie's got, as you mentioned, another year at Alter, but it'll certainly be interesting to see where he lands. But Mike, before we jump into probably my favorite part of the show, which is yes, no, maybe, but we touched a little bit on Ohio State. Is there anything else you wanted to add? I know you mentioned they got the couple of quarterbacks, ended up getting the 5-star quarterback who was originally going to go to Alabama.
Yeah.
But any more information that you want to provide?
No, I think the table's set. If you've been following it at all, you know that major changes happened in a relatively small amount of time in Columbus in terms of players and coaching staff, and in terms of Ryan Day talking about how he's going to run things and who roles and responsibilities and all that kind of stuff. And so I think he did a really nice job of relatively quickly reacting, making changes, bringing kids in, both from a draft class perspective and through the portal. And Ohio State's got an organized collective that puts together the plans for the money that they need to recruit these guys. And while they weren't the most active in terms of that, in terms of quantity of players, they certainly were pretty active and maybe did the best in terms of the quality of the guys that they've brought on and how important and how much of an impact they're going to make immediately. So I think the table's set. And, if you look at some of the sports books, Alabama has fallen out of the top 4 or 5 in terms of the favorites to win the national championship. Ohio State's moved up to number 2, so it's Georgia and Ohio State, and then Texas are the top 3 teams.
Shocking
in terms of who's favored to win the national championship next year. Not a whole lot of surprise there, but except for that Alabama and Michigan are not in the top 4 or 5. So the table set. It's expectations are way more than they've ever have been for a team going into a season next year. And so another one of those really interesting things we're all going to sit and watch.
Yeah, they did very well as far as the portal goes. And, yearly, Ohio State is always usually top 5 as far as recruiting classes. So certainly I would expect Ohio State to be 1, 2, maybe in the preseason rankings as far as being the national champion. Maybe behind Georgia. I still think somebody needs to knock Georgia off before you kind of. Even though they didn't win it, I still think Georgia was one of the best teams last year.
Absolutely. I mean, they're the one. They really got kind of screwed a little bit by the selection committee, but. Texas is loaded too, man. They got a bunch of guys back.
Sarkisian's doing a good job.
And so those are the top, I think, clear top 3 teams. And one thing's probably for sure, you're not going to see Alabama or Michigan. Well, I mean, we're going to 12 teams. I guess anything's possible, but it's going to be hard for Alabama and Michigan to get back up to where they were at this past season, competing for a national championship.
Yeah, agreed. All right, Mike, let's go ahead and jump into yes, no, maybe before we wrap up the show. This is when I make a statement, and Mike and I determine whether we agree, disagree, or possibly agree. First one today, Mike. Notre Dame will join a conference within the next 5 years.
Ooh, 5 years? I'm going to go yes, because I think they're going to be forced to here sooner or later. I think there's going to be some changes in terms of conferences and alignments at the Power 5 football level. I think sooner or later we're gonna end up with a couple, 2 or 3 really big conferences from a football competitive perspective, and I think Notre Dame's going to be forced to. So within the next 5 years, I'm going to say yes.
I'm going to agree. I think that the way that college football is changing so much, and really not for the better, in my opinion, I think they are going to be forced to join a conference, and I have a feeling it's going to be the Big Ten. But we'll see. We'll see how these things shake out. But I totally agree with you. I think they're going to be. Their hand is going to be forced, and they're going to have to join something, or they're going to be left out, and they, of course, don't want that. So I think it's going to happen. Number 2, Jim Harbaugh will win a Super Bowl with the Chargers.
Ooh, yes.
Really?
If he's there long enough.
Okay.
Yeah, he's a proven entity. He's done it. He's gotten there, obviously, and lost to his brother, right, when he was with the 49ers. So, I don't know how long it's going to take. I'm going to guess. Yeah, I'm going to say yes before it's all said and done, but I don't have a time frame for that.
I don't either. I'm going to
year.
agree with you. I'm going to say yes, but I'm going to put a little caveat there.
Yeah.
Can he stay long enough without driving people crazy?
Right. He does not get along well with front offices or administration.
Yeah, I mean, can he last long enough
it's a good point.
Put something together?
That's what I'm saying. I don't know about the time frame on that one, but I'll say yes, but you're right. A little bit of an asterisk there. He's going to have to stay there long enough to be able to do it, right?
Yeah. All right. Well, we'll see on that one. Number 3, 2 more. The 12-team playoff format will remain in place through the year 2030.
Yes. Yeah, I don't see any reason to add anymore, and they're definitely not going to go any less. I think 12 is going to work, and they're going to stick with it. And so I'm going to say 2030, I won't be here, but 2030, I'm going to say yes.
You better. What the hell?
I'll be 75 in 2030.
Nah, you're going to be here. We'll still be doing this, Mike.
Okay. Yeah. I'll need help. I'll be in a wheelchair, but we can still get it done.
I agree with everything that you said, but I'm going to disagree just because I think the greed right now in college football is going to make them expand
Maybe go to 16.
Yeah, I think they're going to expand it because they just love the dollars, and with the way those are flying around right now. I can
see them going to 16, but not much more than that.
Yeah.
Ultimately.
All right, Mike, here's the one for you.
I've got a couple for you, though, before we hang up.
1970s fashion is the worst in the history of the United States of America.
Absolutely no. One of the best. Absolutely no. I wish I'd have kept all those clothes I had. Bell bottoms, suede shoes, satin, silky shirts. No, man. 70s was up there in terms of some of the best fashion ever.
Lord, I am going to wholeheartedly disagree with you on that one.
You had to have lived it to really know the answer for sure.
Well, I was a kid, so I saw my older brothers and sisters wearing that stuff, and I just shook my head. But that is so funny. But you said you had a couple?
Yeah, so yes, no, maybe. The Chiefs win in Baltimore tomorrow.
I'm going to say yes. There's something about
without Joe Thuney.
Well, I mean, that's certainly a huge loss.
Big loss. Joe's going to be there. Actually, my son right now is on his way over there. He's going to hook up with Joe and have dinner, I think, or do something with him later today. But you never want to say no when you talk about Patrick Mahomes. And Andy Reid. And the weather's going to be really bad. It's supposed to rain the whole game, I think, if not off and on. And so everybody loves the Ravens. Everybody's picking the Ravens as far as the point spread and picking the winners and all that stuff. But you never want to say no when it comes to Mahomes and Andy Reid and those guys. And so it's definitely possible. But you said no.
No, I'm going to go. I'm going to say
the Chiefs can go in there and win.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, tomorrow's the best football day of the year in terms of the NFL. It's better than Super Bowl Sunday because you've got 2 championship games. You got 2 games, right?
Yeah.
Instead of just all this hype and preparation for one. And so to me, tomorrow's the big day, the party day, and it's the most exciting day. Hopefully both of them are competitive and neither one of them are or especially both of them are blowouts. We'd want them to be close and competitive. I think it's going to be interesting. A lot of storylines there, but I'm going to be rooting for Kansas City and Detroit, and that would be kind of a strange Super Bowl. I think any Super Bowl with Detroit in it is going to be strange.
I would love to see Detroit win it all.
One game away, man. One game away.
Absolutely. Did you have one more, Mike?
Well, that one. Yes, no, maybe. Detroit can go into San Francisco and pull the upset.
Yes, I think they can. And the reason why I say that is because I don't think San Francisco's really playing that well right now. They did not
Deebo
look
Samuel
that great.
back tomorrow. Supposedly he's healthy and ready to go. But I feel like Detroit's on a little bit of a destiny mission, right? Don't you feel like it?
Well, it's funny. I saw a map, and it said who was rooting for Detroit and who was rooting for
the whole country.
Yeah, the whole country was Detroit, and there was one state rooting for
the Ravens. 1 or 2 states for the Chiefs, and 1 or 2 states for the 49ers, but the rest of the country was colored lion blue, and everybody was rooting for Detroit. I saw the same graphic. That's pretty cool. But again, like everybody else, I guess tomorrow I'll be rooting for Detroit, and because I hate the Ravens, I'm rooting for Kansas City. I don't care if they go again. And I don't care about all that Taylor Swift crap. I could care less.
Yeah.
I want the Chiefs to keep the Ravens out of the Super Bowl.
Yeah. Well, all right, folks, that's going to wrap it up for us today. Thanks for joining us for another episode of Gamecast Radio Sports Talk. Also want to send a thank you out to Larry Hansgen for joining us today. Great conversation with him, the voice of the Flyers. Mike, have safe travels today when you and the boys travel over to West Virginia.
Leaving in 50 minutes.
Get the W.
Let's get the dub. Without RJ, it's going to be a challenge, but I think we're up to it. I think we can do it.
All right, folks, have a great day. Enjoy the sports. And we'll see you back here next week on Gamecast Radio Sports Talk.
Goodbye, everybody.